Hey, everybody, welcome to the Unconventional Therapist Guide to Nothing. My name is Dave. I'm joined here with my friend Greg. Greg, what's up, dude? Really light conversation today. I'm really looking forward to this.
Nice and
Really
easy.
bright and
Yeah.
bright and enlightening
Yeah.
topic.
Well, Dave, I mean, we do like to see why people are the way they are, and we're gonna get a good glimpse at that.
Yeah.
Honestly, when I'm thinking of this story, it reminds me of an episode that we've done in the past. It really does. And it's a story about a being, I guess you could say,
Hmm.
who was abandoned by his creator for what he is, for what he looks like, and ultimately would become a monster, or they would call him a monster, and that would be like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like he would think that of himself and become that. And that's Frankenstein. Now, the person, we're not talking fantasy here, but the person we're talking about is not unlike Frankenstein in a lot of ways,
Well,
right?
yeah, because Frankenstein is actually the scientist and the
Oh my God,
character
Dave,
is the
you're really gonna do
monster.
this to me? Oh, I didn't know this was a fucking literature lesson.
The character is
Yes,
the monster.
that's right.
It's
That's right.
not
Victor
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein. And I know that. We have done the episode and I actually teach it. So thank God none of my students actually listen to this. That's how I'd be taking some heat. But we're talking about Ed Kemper.
Ed, uh, what's his nickname? Big Ed.
Big
I was
Ed.
gonna I was gonna
Right.
say
Yeah.
Ed and then say his nickname Kemper, but then I forgot what his nickname is. I know there's like
Egg Big
big.
Ed.
There's Big Ed. There's another one. I'm trying to remember what it is. That fell flat. But anyways, probably one of the lesser talked about of the big like name serial killers. I would say.
Yeah, and it's ironic that that's the case because when you really kind of dive into it,
Yeah.
it's like he's the archetype for all of them.
He is possibly one of the worst.
Hmm.
And I know that there'll be some, people that are like, well, no, Jeffrey Dahmer is the worst. He ate well,
Well, dude,
learn
wait.
about Kemper.
Yeah, just wait a
That
second
it's
because he
debatable.
did one thing. Um, there is a thing that
He
he did that
he
that's
did,
pretty wild.
and there's probably more that he did that he is not saying or maybe retracted. So I think the jury's still out, but I mean the guy also talks a lot, so it would be interesting to know like if he did end up keeping anything. Like at this point, is it all out there? Do we know everything there is to know with the amount that he's talked? He does a lot
He's
of
so
interviews.
unemotional about his like crimes that it's so possible that there's not so much emotion to it that he would like, remember it forever. He could have just forgotten horrible things that he did.
Sure.
I mean,
I
really.
mean, spoiler alert, we got a ton of personality disorders going on
Yeah,
here.
we do.
I don't think that's a surprise to anybody who knows actually any of the serial killer episodes. I think we saw that in most of them. Maybe Eileen Warnos was the only one we didn't really talk about it as much. Well, we brought it up, but then we also talked about like trauma and
Yeah, with
stuff
her,
like that.
more of a PTSD,
Sure.
hypervigilance, probably some borderline. But
Yeah. Yeah.
with this, it's like, and when I say he's the archetype, I mean, that show Mindhunters, the FBI, when they
Yeah.
started like profiling serial killers, this is one of the people that they were using, being like, oh, here are these factors, like, oh, they do certain things when they're children, they're treated a certain way, they have certain diagnoses, they behave in a certain these patterns. They're learning what a serial killer is through people like Ed Kemper. He literally is one of the models for what a serial
Yeah.
killer or what we know to be a serial killer today.
When we wrap up this story in our final thoughts, I'll make a note for us to talk about it. But I would love to get your thoughts on why he's not a more talked about killer, whereas like Dahmer, Bundy, even Richard Ramirez, and who else would there be? Ed Gein, just
Yeah.
because of he's mostly talked about because of how often he's been used as like an influence for
Yeah.
other like fictional characters. But like Kemper is a horrible person, a horrible character, and it's surprising he's not mentioned more. I mean, I know he's known by people, but I just feel like he's not a popular figure.
I think I have some ideas why. Hopefully, I
All right.
still will by the time we talk about it.
Okay.
But if
So
you want, I can kind of get into like
let's
what,
get into it. Yeah.
yeah, like let's get into his early life because I think that's when you have things like this, or people like this, you kind of want to know where it began, how it began to try to.
Uh,
explain a little
dare I say this is where it all started? I
bit.
mean, his childhood sucked.
His childhood did suck. It certainly did. But that might be part of, as we always say, the explanation as to what he become, but it's
His
never an
origin
excuse.
story.
Yeah, it's not an excuse. So this when Ed Kemper was born, he was 13 pounds. He was a 13-pound baby. So this is I only say that because he's a monstrosity of a person. And we're gonna see like exactly how big he was towards
How
the
are we
end.
going to see
This
that?
I'm going to draw a picture and post it. So, and Dave, I thought that you would think this was interesting too. He was a middle child. So if you guys are interested, like, why would
Oh,
that matter? Maybe jump into the Adler episode and
absolutely.
you can find out
Absolutely.
why, like, what could be contributing there, if
Hmm.
anything. And here's the first kinds of things that you start to get into. Kind of a tough upbringing, close with his dad. Around 10 years old, you start to see some behaviors that are questionable. Like, for one, he buried a cat alive, felt bad, unburied it, then he cut its head off. So, not great, and he also stuck that cat's head on a spike, almost like a medieval type thing, which is, here we are with the animals. This is where like the FBI is like, okay, this is something that you see with serial killers for sure,
You
the
know,
animal thing.
the more that I hear about the animal thing and I think about it, which I hate thinking about it because it's horrible,
I
but
don't like
like the more the more that does make sense because
makes
that
sense.
is when you're a kid, animals are like everything. You see an animal and you want to make it everything's your pet. You get an affection you have admirable feelings towards animals as a kid. For most of us, I think.
Well, we
Right?
hope.
We hope.
Yeah. Well, Dave, the other side of that is, look, he's a monstrosity as a kid, but he's 10 years old. He doesn't have the capacity to murder like people and kind of toy with them that way. But because he has so much power over this animal, then he can feel free to toy with it that way. So I think there's that element of it too,
Yeah,
where
I'm just thinking like to bury it alive. All right, you're a kid, you do a crazy thing. Like maybe we can excuse that if it's a
mm,
one time thing. You unbury it, then you cut its head off, then
yeah,
you put its head on a stick
yeah,
and put it in your room. Like you literally
kind of
have no feelings
fucked up part
of
too.
anything for this animal. You have no regard for its that the fact that it was living and breathing at one point in time. None of that like doesn't come to you at all. That escaped you.
No, and what's interesting is like his childhood tells a lot of stories. So there's that. And then again with the cats, his sister like really liked a different cat. She got a new cat after all this, right? So and he felt that the sister liked the cat more than she liked him. So
Yeah.
he murdered that cat, of course. And he is able to gaslight the sister and convince the parents that he didn't touch the cat, but the sister knows that he did. So there's this like dangerous combination of he's a really smart guy. Like he's intellectually like
Yeah.
he will test at genius levels,
Yes, he
right?
will.
His IQ is like pretty high. And pride, like in the biblical sense, like he's self-centered. His what how he feels is more important than anybody else, and all in this one instance, and also obviously a lack of remorse or empathy. I mean, he's killed another cat, he's hurt his sister, only to make himself feel better. And that same sister, he would cut the dolls' heads off and mutilate them, which not so bad, but
Mhm.
pretty odd, right? I mean, I had a friend Isaac, I won't go any further. I won't give any last names, but he used to really kind of do some weird things with Barbie dolls, and I've always wondered how did that progress? Hopefully, not too far.
I
You
know an
know?
adult that does weird things with Barbie dolls. I mean, I think he's fine.
Well, I mean, red
It's
flag.
art, he calls it art
Yeah, I
at
guess if
least.
it's I guess you can call anything art though, just to
Yeah.
kind of get away with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. So he's a big guy in school, right? So now he's in grade school. He's 10, 11, 12 years old. And one of his classmates asks him because he's so big and their teacher is they got a pretty teacher, right? Right? And his friend says to him like, "So why haven't you tried to kiss this teacher? Why haven't you tried to kiss her?" And his reply was, which kind of is a little foreshadowing, if I wanted to kiss her, I would have to kill her first.
Yeah.
And it's like a little like throwaway comment, but it's also like is that suggestion like sort of necrophilia? Like I wouldn't be attracted to her unless she was dead in
I,
some
you know,
sense.
I thought about it a different way.
Oh wow.
My second thought, not my initial thought. He feels like he's such an unlovable or ugly person that she would have to be dead for him to have an opportunity to be able to kiss her. Like no one would ever kiss this man because of
Oh
his
wow.
beast, body.
Wow. Yeah, he
Could
does have
be it could be a little bit of like a different take and actually expressing his lack of self-worth.
it could have been. That's
Like
true
no
too.
one is ever gonna love this guy.
Or no one is ever gonna be able to completely understand me because he's been called weird up until this point. Like his family's been calling him weird and odd and sort of, alluding to a monster his entire
Sure.
life up until this point.
Yeah.
But he's
You
weird.
know,
So like,
isn't it interesting though? Like we can only take that quote. We don't know the context of
no,
how he meant it or how it was said. So we can only take it and like pass it on in like like this lore of who
yeah.
Ed Kemper was. And I mean we'll interpret it to mean the worst possible thing we can think of.
Well, I mean, we're looking for it, right? I mean,
Right.
that's our human nature. We're looking for the explanation. Like, what is different about this guy? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
We're
what?
just doing to Ed Kemper what society has always done to Ed Kemper, and we're the real monsters.
Oh no, no, no! It's still Ed.
Oh,
Trust me.
you're yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. My
yeah.
bad, my
Hang on,
bad.
hang on to your hat. So this guy, his strange kid, right? Favorite childhood games are gas chamber and electric chair. You know, that's
Yeah,
like very like Pugsley Adams games. You
yeah.
can imagine him doing that. And there's also
Pugsley
this
Adams times
ugh,
15,
time. Yeah, he makes Pugsley Adams look like I don't know, um, Elijah Wood, who's like a sweet
like a pug
person.
dog.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That good enough, right?
Pugsley.
Little pug dog named
Yeah,
Winston Churchill. So, all right. So those are the childhood games. There's also this weird Good Son thing going on with his sisters. So you've seen the Good Son movie, right?
yeah.
With
Macaulay Culkin, Elijah Wood. Yeah,
yeah. And so he's trying to like there's this weird thing where the Macaulay Culkin is this really dangerous kid and the mother kind of knows it and he's really kind of fooling everyone else. So I think there's this thing going on with the sisters where his oldest sister sees something in him, I think. Because or she's just as wild as he is because she's tried to push him in front of a train, she tried to push him in a pool. But when I think about it, it I feel like or the way I like to think about it is her like peering out into the hallway and seeing him doing something like really strange to the cat or like hearing him talk about something. I don't know, I just feel like the sister was trying to like save the world from him in a sense.
yeah. I
I
agree.
mean, yeah, you do. Okay, good. So
I mean, not really, but like I want to agree with that. Like it
okay,
probably is. It probably is oblivious, and just the dynamic they had. But I want to think that she thought something
do
was
you?
wrong.
Yeah, because it's fun. It's
Right.
fun to imagine. Like that's more like Hollywood for us to imagine. Like she sees something and she's like, "Oh my God! Like I gotta do something about." Like she has her own sort of like demons to battle with this. So, oh, and that teacher that he wouldn't kiss unless she was dead. He did really want to though, because he would take his father's
Oh yeah.
bayonet and go to her house and watch her through the windows.
Greg,
Which,
for people, I mean, we have a younger audience. Well, some, not all.
yeah.
What's a bayonet for anyone who
Okay,
maybe doesn't know?
so his father was a veteran, and a bayonet is sort of like a knife that you attach to the end of your gun when things get real close, real hot and heavy, and you just start stabbing away. That's what a
So
bayonet.
he's just bringing the knife,
Yeah,
not the entire like gun.
no, but that's
Oh,
weird
okay.
though. Like, why is the knife there? Like, why are you bringing the knife? There's like this weird combination of eroticism and death, like all and like violence already.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, did he bring it because if he got caught, his plan was I'm gonna, attack them with this knife, or was it like he was fantasizing about doing something to her with the knife, or was he doing something to himself with the knife?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
So who knows, right? And I think maybe the emotionless, as we'll see as time goes on, he's like, you know what? If I get caught, I'll just stab him and
yeah,
and I'll get away.
and
I
then I'll
just
just run away
yeah,
because that's
yeah,
kind of like what he does.
yeah. And they'll think it was
Just
my
runs
dad
away.
because it's
It's his bayonet. It's his bayonet. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, and his dad, Kemper is close with his dad up until a certain point, but ultimately his parents will divorce when he's around 10 years old. And this leaves him with his mom and her Clarnell.
Larnell.
I mean, come on, with a name like Clarnell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez. And mom, so dad leaves. He's stuck with mom, who's an abusive alcoholic.
Right.
She tells him all the time how much of a monster he is. She would lock him in a basement. And again, there's a couple ways to look at this, of course, but she would lock him in the basement and say to him, like, you're dangerous, you're scary, I don't want you to hurt your sisters. Now, do you think that she would also just not show him any affection because she was afraid it was going to make him gay. Because he is kind of soft spoken and it's like this weird
She was
conflict or
trying to harden him
juxtaposition.
up.
Yeah,
And
she
she
was.
probably also was overcompensating for the fact that his dad left.
That, or do you think on some way she's like, I am afraid that he is going to hurt his sisters?
Possibly. She probably saw a little something in him, but also she sounds like a nightmare.
She's a nightmare.
And unfortunately for him, his dad, kind of left him there, but you know, because his dad wanted to be nowhere near her.
Clarnell.
He would have, Ed would have had a much better go in life probably if he somehow ended up with his dad and actually
So,
experienced someone who he felt connected to.
well, here's the thing. Ed was thinking the same way you are, Dave. And he's like, you know what? I'm gonna run away and I'm gonna go back to my dad and I'm gonna live with him. This is after living with his mom for a while. And he finds dad who's got a whole new family.
Yeah.
And this is a pivotal moment for Ed, right? So it's like this was for him the answer. All right, my mother, my sisters, they don't see me. They think I'm this monster, but
Right.
dad gets me.
Yeah.
Dad gets me.
And dad's moved on.
Dad's moved on.
This
Dad,
reminded me of Dahmer right here.
yeah.
Because Dahmer has that his dad would like leave him home alone for periods of time. And then at some point, dad like establishes a new family and tries to include him, but like Dahmer's like too far gone at that point, I
It's
think.
too
And
far gone.
and this is kind of similar. It's that idea that like the person that you need that love from, you needed that attention from, now found a replacement for you.
Boundary play, like are you all these things that people have been telling you are? You're
That's what I'm saying. Like I really feel like Ed Kemper just basically was sent the message that he is like a monster is a very strong word to use,
dangerous,
but like
dangerous.
and like just not worthwhile. Like he's not that important. He shipped off to like you're going to get to the next place he goes, but like his dad just up and leaves, even though that's like the person he feels the most connected to. His mom's locking him in the freaking basement like an animal. Like no wonder it's like that pecking order thing. No wonder why he's killing small animals and cats and stuff like that. Why is he going to respect them any more than anyone's respecting him? He's
Right.
being
And
told
it's
he's
like
weird by everybody.
some power in his life, right? Like something.
Yeah.
So you
That's
know
that's
what?
a that's a really good take right there. Power.
Yeah,
He need
absolutely.
he needs to find power, so he exerts it where he can. Even watching his teacher without her knowing with a knife in his hand. Think about
Hmm.
the power right there.
It's power. Absolutely. It's agency. Like I do have some control.
Yeah.
I do have something.
I'm
So
watching her. I have the power here. Yeah.
so listen to this though. So all right, fine. Dad has a new family, but I do have old grandma and grandpa,
Well, he gets
right?
sent to them.
Well, yeah, dad's like take a walk, right?
Right,
Essentially.
right, right.
And that's sad. Like I mean, well, I get it's hard to like look at this and be like I feel bad for him.
No,
Um
I mean his childhood, like
it's tough.
remove like adult Ed Kemper from the equation.
It's a
His
sad childhood.
childhood genuinely feel bad for this guy.
I actually, oh, he almost reminds me of a kid. He really reminds me of a kid that I knew growing up. John, actually, John Steven. I know he's never gonna listen to this, but he was a big dude, really big. I actually once saw him take a street sign out of the ground, like huge. I mean, Ed Kemper size, like
Yeah,
almost 7 feet, very heavy guy. And his mom was an alcoholic. She was never around. He would like have like high school parties at his house, even though he didn't have a t like people I felt like were taking advantage of him because he was a neighborhood friend. You know how that's a different relationship than like a school friend,
right, right.
almost like much closer. And I'd be like, damn, like why are we doing this? Like they're just your mom's just not here. And this is making you feel what? Like I don't know. It just made me think when I was a kid, like this is just like weird. It felt wrong, you know? I
Yeah.
felt like people were using him. And you know, maybe he got something out of it too, like people were around. Anyway, so he went to move in with his grandparents and you know, grandparents can be tough. I don't like this sometimes is an okay thing, but when you're I don't know, when you need parents really badly and they've abandoned you, and then you kind of move in with these people who are like out of your time in a sense. They emasculated him. The grandmother was awful to him. He thought the grandfather was senile. And, you know, he's 15 years old and he couldn't take up with his grandmother anymore. And he, you know, murders her. And he calls the police, calmly confesses, tells them what's going on. And he also tells him that he shot his grandfather too because he didn't want to have him to have to see his dead grandmother, but I think he just hated him too.
Yep.
Craziness.
Yep.
So those are the first murders. 15 years old, not far off of our own Craig Price here in Rhode Island,
Yeah. Yep.
who was I think 13,
I believe
which
so.
is which is wild.
He also stated when he killed his grandmother that he did it to see what it felt like. They had actually had
Such an honest answer.
they were taking his firearms away from him because he was killing birds and small animals with them, and that was played into part of the
Oh
issue
wow, okay.
of why
And they're
he
like, "Come
hated
on, what do
him.
you mean?" Like, yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of was like one of the things that led up to him killing his grandmother and in a heated argument, which is
Yeah, do you
actually
really
a
think
little foreshadowing to a later murder that was also a family, which I'll get to
And so yeah,
later.
and Ed in himself will talk. I listened to a few like, you know, videos of him talking, which is eerie because he's so calm. Like he talks about these murders with
Yeah.
like he's just so calm and to the point and to the fact. But he does talk about the anger um that his mom that he carries for his mom. Like everything is sort of motivated by like how his mom made him feel about himself. He hates her and he
Mhm.
loves her and it's this weird like reactive attachment thing going on.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was actually a take I was going to have is like that reactive attachment
sure.
borderline angle for him for sure. I mean, he's a little late in life for when some of those things happen, but who knows what happened even at earlier ages with, some of the dynamics and that stuff.
Well,
But like borderline for sure.
the cluster B thing, he's got it covered, I think. I
Yeah.
think he's got all the cluster B like personality
Yeah,
disorders.
he was actually formally diagnosed with a bunch of the personality disorders. So,
So, but he does. He's a smart, adaptive person. So he's a smart, adaptive, angry, zero remorse or empathy guy who's just learning that to hate women especially, but
yeah.
like this is where he's at. So he's young, he's 15, he ends up in an institution. I mean, he's 15 years old. They can't put him in prison really. And he's smart and like we've talked about before, like genius level IQ. And he's in this institution and the psychologists and the psychiatrists are noticing how smart he is and they think wow, like this guy he's got really, there's really something about him that's like remarkable. And he actually starts being allowed to administer other psyche evals to like younger kids.
Yeah.
And so while he's doing that, he's seeing what makes sense. He's seeing what gets people released, what makes people stay in this institution. He's seeing what they're looking for for quote unquote rehabilitation, like what that would look like. And I think that this is something that really speaks to the antisocial piece, where he doesn't have that ability to empathize or show serious emotion. He's very flat when you hear him and see him speak. So I think that this is where Kemper is learning, like, oh, okay, when you hear something like this or you say something like that, this is how you're supposed to react. This is an appropriate response to that. So he's learning what it's going to take for him to get released from this institution at a young age and
Sure.
make it seem like he's going to be completely fine.
This is in that institution, from what I understand, is also when he it was noted that he was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia as well,
Yeah, I didn't
which
mention it because that doesn't feel right.
no,
Doesn't
but I
feel
mean,
like a
it is a note that at that time they had seen that, I guess. I also thought it was interesting and maybe also a little telling. I mean, the rationale for killing his grandfather, he didn't want to see him find his wife dead. sounds oddly protective,
It sounds oddly, I was gonna say that too. Like it sounds like there's like, is that empathetic? I feel
or is
like,
it or is it like BS?
yeah, like I did this out of anger and like, yeah, well, you know what? I had to do the right thing, quote
I also
unquote.
wonder if like, he killed his grandmother to see what it felt like also feels like BS.
Do you want to know what I was thinking might have happened? I think that the grandparents and you know, honestly, if your grandparents catch you doing something, you know, off and really kind of embarrassing, which like later you'll see.
Oh, they
I-
knew something was
I-
up,
yeah, I
right?
think that's more embarrassing than like almost even your parents finding you do something
I think he killed them
to hide
be,
something, right?
yeah, to hide something, and he was angry at them because they were limiting him.
Yeah.
I think that there was some discipline or structure trying to be instilled, and he didn't like it because it's not something that he had gotten. He had gotten very poor treatment from his mom, but I don't think he got like structure and like like appropriate consequencing and things like that. I think
No.
he just was angry with them because they were trying to step in and actually be a parent, and he killed them for out of anger. But like for him, it felt better to say to see what it felt like than because it was after an argument. So I mean, it was clearly an
Yeah.
emotional response, but he doesn't know how to really identify emotions.
And they can't ever say, "Oh, well, this is what was going on with him."
Right.
Well, and thank God. Well, I mean, not thank God. That probably would have saved everyone a lot of. He was probably up to some strange things, some really strange things. And when his mother she's an alcoholic. She's obviously not like paying close attention to him. His sisters are seeing him do some stuff, so they're trying to freaking kill him. And this is when he's even younger. And as he's getting older and bigger, he's like more and more dangerous. And his grandparents are probably, they're a little more strict, so they're getting in the way of him fulfilling these things that sort of soothe that urge, that craving for him. And if he can't or like soothe that urge or get that release, however he's getting it, then he's gonna get angry and angry and angry and dangerous. And then then he can do what he wants. So
Yeah.
I think he like part of it is like, well, when they're gone, I can do what I want. And then it got a little bit complicated.
I mean, just kind of back to that idea of like how people have treated him and kind of that poor self view that he probably had. I mean, the sister thing, I kind of overlooked that piece of it as well, but like even his sisters don't are like trying to off him or not really
I know.
showing
Yeah.
any regard to his life as they try to push him in front of a train and drown him. So
He
I
almost
mean,
drowned. Yeah, he almost died.
he almost died at the
So
hands of his sister.
he probably sank like a rock because once he's rehabilitated now he's when he's released from this thing. He's a man. He's a full-grown man, and I mean a full-grown man. He's 6'9", 300 pounds. That's a big boy.
That's big.
He seems okay though.
Big.
Like, yeah, that's a big guy. That's a if I mean that's a guy who can probably it's not going to be easy, right? We're not going to give ourselves up easy, but I guess if he wanted to, we're falling prey to him
He's
too.
taking your life, Greg.
Yeah, absolutely. Um,
He's picking
yeah,
you up and taking your life.
probably ripping me in half. So he
If
seems
you're lucky.
if I'm lucky, that's all that will happen.
Well,
Hopefully,
he's gonna kill you before he kisses you, though.
yeah, that's the lucky part. I guess we're both going to be lucky. We're both getting lucky. However you want to call it, you know. So he seems rehabilitated. They let him out, and then it's kind of like as the police and well because he's a good friend of the police, right? He actually tries out for the state troopers, but they're like you're too big. That was
Yeah,
like literally
yeah.
the
Like if we have to jump a fence, you're too big to jump that fence.
yeah, and like you can't even fit in the cars.
In like every like 80s movie, there's like they run into the end of an alley and there's like this really tall fence that they have
Yep.
to like climb over. He
Yep.
ain't climbing over that
He's not doing
fence.
it. You have to throw their jacket on it and like
Yeah.
climb over barbed wire.
Yeah.
I wonder if
Those
that really works.
those felons are
Um,
getting away and he's on the ground.
but he gets ends up getting a good job, like a good city
Yeah.
job, and he seems rehabilitated. He's friends with the police. They call him Big Ed. They hang out at the same bar. They're like
They good.
constantly talking. Yeah, hey, Big Ed's here. They all love him. The police love him, right?
Um,
And this kind of sets the scene for like when things start getting a little ugly.
yeah. You said he's like kind of presents as like the archetype for serial killers.
Yeah,
There's so much here. So I mentioned like Dahmer, reminiscent, Gacy. so much here reminds me of Gacy. Gacy was a schmoozer.
Was
He
he?
he loved, like, the police loved him. They would play like these cat and mouse games. He would follow them places, like, but and he loved to talk. He loved to talk. Now Ed Kemper doesn't have the personality that Gacy had. Gacy had charisma, I think, or just this ability to like
Bundy too.
people, and Bundy too. Kemper loves to talk, but he, like you said, it's like emotionless. It's
Hmm.
he almost talks like when we did the BTK episode and we talked about the way Dennis Rader got up in court and stood there and just rambled off with a flat affect all of his crimes, right?
Yeah,
That's how Kemper is all the time, it feels like,
all the
right?
time.
Yeah.
Like he would tell you something gruesome and not even like wince or elevate his voice or breathe like
Yeah.
you there's no tell.
Yeah. So I feel like it's almost like BTK when he had that confessional in the courtroom. It was almost like he was channeling Kemper
Yeah.
to like talk in such a like a unbiased and unaffected fashion, right?
It's like a Michael Myers kind of thing.
Yeah, the Rob Zombie Michael Myers when
Yeah.
he's like this huge dude and he has the backstory and all that stuff. Yeah,
But
for
except
sure.
except this one has except the real monster, Kemper, has the intellect too. The other one
Yes.
seemed to
Yep.
have it.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, fascinating guy, this guy. I mean, fascinating in like a horrible way,
Sure,
but
we get it.
fascinating.
Yeah.
All right. So on to the murders.
Hmm.
So, as you mentioned, he got a city job, so he's working for the highway department. And that same year, he is hit by a car while out on his motorcycle. These are two seemingly unrelated facts, but they actually do intertwine because he ends up receiving a $15,000 settlement in a civil suit filed against the car's driver because he's unable to work. He had injured his arm pretty badly, and idle time is not good for a guy like Kemper.
Mm-mm.
Also, Ed noticed that there was a large number of young women hitchhiking in the area, which I'm assuming is because of that highway department job. He was probably out on the streets and noticed all these young hitchhikers. So he starts to devise a plan and he begins storing tools in the new car that he bought with that settlement money. These are murder tools like guns, knife, handcuffs, yada, yada. Um, and then he starts picking up females, all these young hitchhikers. But he starts off by picking them up and letting them go,
Yeah.
picking them up and putting them down, right?
Yeah, no,
the,
which I find this whole thing like some accounts has like Kemper has himself saying like maybe over 100. So you can imagine these women have been in a dark, scary
and they didn't even know.
situation with Ed Kemper. They didn't know how close they were to
Yeah.
being. They didn't know
They
they were
got in the
murder tools,
car. Imagine
dude.
that. Like,
You get in the car and you see that guy with the seat way back into he's sitting in the back seat and have the seat removed.
he's the size of, like, what is it, Sloth from Goonies, and you get in.
It's like the
Come
Undertaker.
on,
I know.
I question these ladies, but like,
Yeah.
I guess you need a ride,
Different
so
time.
you do what you do. Um, yeah, so he starts picking them up, but he's actually does drop them off to their destinations. But then something changes, and he picks up two women, Marianne. I'm gonna guess the last names like Pesci,
That's what I thought.
and Anita Lucchesa. So flash forward shortly after. I mean, needless to say, those two ladies didn't make it to their destination. Flash forward a little bit later, a female head is discovered in the woods near Santa Cruz, which was identified as Pesci's. However, Luchesa's remains were never found. Kemper later explained that he stabbed and strangled Marianne Pesci before stabbing Luchesa as well. And after the murders, he brought the bodies back to his apartment, removed their heads and hands, and he also reportedly engaged in sexual activity with the corpses.
Yeah.
He removed their heads and hands, like dismemberment. So he
Yeah.
goes from what a jump. I mean, he's already murdered. We know that he killed his
He
grandparents,
hits the ground running.
but he's starting off by picking up hitchhikers and then bringing them to their destinations. Probably has having like, thoughts and things like that. And then his first murder, jumping into the murder, he dismembers and then does necrophilia.
Dude, to jump into, I was gonna say, like, when you think of necrophilia, that's like,
You think of that like later crime, like that's
yeah,
like
that's like once you
towards
can't like this, you've. almost developed a tolerance for like the crimes that you've been committing. So you have to like elevate and elevate and elevate. And now all of a sudden it's like necrophilia is involved, and you're like, holy shit, where did I go wrong? You know what I mean?
I
Like
think he was getting very sexually frustrated with the amount of because I would imagine that him picking up all these females at some point he probably imagined I'm gonna get lucky.
mm.
One of these females is gonna show interest in me.
And
I'm gonna
every
have
time
it
they don't, I'm more and more and
right.
more angry.
And you know what
And
it
then maybe
does
there's some
prove?
sexual attraction to the viscera too, you
Oh,
know?
well, it also proves that the quote that he made about his teacher was true
Hmm.
because none of these females have that interaction as far as we know. And then he finally gets it by murdering the girls. And
Whatever he meant by it, it's true.
yeah, yeah. So
You know what I mean?
it gave the meaning to that quote from when he was, a child. So horrible. But those are the first two of the co-ed murders, as they are called. Um, so later that year, which was 1972, he picks up a 15-year-old named Aiku Ku, who had decided to hitchhike rather than wait for the bus to take to her dance class. And she unfortunately came to a similar demise as the previous two murders. So super gruesome, sad, it's 15, such a young girl too.
Yeah. No.
So he clearly like, there was no he wasn't making exemptions for age or anything like that. In January of 73, he picks up a hitchhiker named Cindy Shaw, whom he shoots and kills. When his mother's out, Kemper goes to her home, hides the body, Shaw's body, in his room there, and he dismembers her corpse there the following day and threw the parts into the ocean.
Mm.
Several of those parts were later discovered as they washed up on shore. He also buried her head in his mother's backyard, which is interesting. I wonder what that was, if that was symbolic or something like that. Like, why would he
Yeah.
do that?
For convenience, I don't know.
Who knows? February 73, so a month later, he uses a campus parking sticker his mother had given him, drives to a local college. Do you remember which college it was that he was
I think it was
by?
UC Santa Cruz.
Okay. And he offers a ride to two students, Rosalind Thorpe and Alice Liu. He shoots the two young women and then drives past the campus security at the gates with the two mortally wounded in the car. After the murders, he decapitates the two women, further dismembers their bodies, removes the bullets from their heads, and disposes of their parts in different locations.
So
Um,
the decapitation, there's something like that's a statement,
yeah,
right? When you remove something's head,
but he had been doing that.
that's his move. I mean,
He
he's
had
been
been
doing that
doing it
since
with the
little.
cat. He
Yeah.
had done it with the dolls. I think he later talks about having daydreams about decapitating his mom.
Yes. And
Like he's just fascinated with decapitation.
but what is taking someone's head take away from them? Their ability
Everything.
to judge, their ability to torment, their ability to speak and hurt. You know what I mean? You're just he just wants people. He's only attracted to you if you're never going to be able to hurt him like his mother did. So if he takes off your head, now it's on. Now we can party. And then I guess he's going to take off your arms and stuff too.
Does he
I don't know
party
why.
with the head?
I, I think you'll get to it, right? When with there's a specific murder
Okay.
that I think he does party with the
Can't
head.
remember. Let me go on.
Yeah.
So some of these two ladies' remains were discovered by hikers the following month. So then in April of 73, on Good Friday, he goes to his mother's home and he has a very poor exchange with her.
Uh-huh.
He waits for her to fall asleep and then strikes her in the head with a hammer and then cuts her throat with a knife. He then decapitates her head, cuts off her hands, and also removes her larynx and
Yes.
puts it down the garbage disposal.
Yes.
So,
So here's
yeah,
something. Here's something about his mom's murder that it's like you're not going to see everywhere and you have to read between the lines a little bit. this was a very special one for him. And there was a sexual encounter with his mother too. Except I'm just gonna like there's no way to like say this in a nice way, but I want to see your reaction from this. He performed hi- like he forced his mother to perform oral
Oral.
on him, but it was just the head.
Yeah, I actually knew that.
That is, dude.
They include that in Mine Hunters?
They did, yes,
They did say that in there.
yes, and that
Is that like actually known
that's
to be
actual
true?
fact. Yep, yes, he's admitted to that. And now in that, can you think of something darker and worse than that? I mean, dude, honestly, like that is movie level, like sick movie level, where you'd be like, dude, that's not even, that's just not okay.
Right.
That's strange on so many levels. So he wanted to humiliate, shut her up. There's so much like metaphor there, where he's with the mouth. I think this is there's just
I,
no other way to say it.
it also makes me think that maybe like that love hate he has for her,
Yes.
there was also a sexual feeling there for him as well though. Sexuality, anger, hate, love, all these
Confused.
things are just intertwined.
They are, and then it's like this weird thing where with some people with these cases, like with even like Dahmer, where like he's like sexually attracted to like wet guts kind of thing, right? Where like that's like your lines are crossed somewhere. Like
Yeah.
that's a mutation somewhere in your synapses in your brain. That's not so, and then even like if you thought of it, like the way you're bringing up, I hadn't thought of maybe he had this kind of like sexual attraction to his mom, maybe trying to repress that, or I don't know. It's like
It's
very
almost like
like
he maybe like this felt like the holy grail, the thing maybe he had
this is the Holy
always
Grail.
wanted to
Yep.
do.
I think
And
that he thought
I
that if
think
he
he's
did this, he would never have to do it again.
yeah.
He stops
And
killing.
I feel like he was when he was doing the previous murders, he was mentally doing them all to his mom
Absolutely.
and just
They all
over and
became his
over
mom.
and over.
And do
Yeah.
you think that like with that flat affect as he's like killing these women, he was like, "Fuck you, mom," or whatever. Honestly, like would almost
I
be like
wonder, right?
dissociate, you know?
If he was like talking to them as if they were his mom or
Dude, imagine the horror.
that would be yeah. Yeah, this guy is well, the crazy thing is, so he hides his mom's body parts and
Yeah,
then
of
goes to a bar,
course.
like
No
do
feeling.
do returns home, calls his mom's friend, Sally Hallett, and invites her over to his house, I guess, to watch a movie. Why would his mom's friend go to his house?
I don't know. Maybe they were watching a new release. I don't know.
Oh, you got that on VHS? Oh,
Yeah.
snap.
Yeah, this is the 70s, so yeah.
Um, he then strangles her shortly after she arrives and hides her body in the closet. In the net, so she fell for that was like probably the easiest trap ever. Like it feels like he put no effort into that, and it really doesn't even feel like that was that rewarding to him. It didn't.
It's like he door dashed a murder.
Yeah, he strangled her. Like Ed, what are you doing? Why'd you even
I know.
bother? Like your heart was not in it. Why'd you even bother? Like not even to make a joke out of a murder, but like that one really it makes you wonder why did he do that one? I don't. I gotta dig into
Maybe
that one
maybe to
more
see if like after the mom was dead.
if he
I
would
think
still need that or have
yeah.
that feeling. And apparently he didn't because I don't
I
know
think that's
any
it,
more about
right?
that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he flees the next day. He, I guess, takes a ton of caffeine pills and drives, to until he reaches Pueblo, Colorado. So that's quite a distance from
Good
where
drive.
he's stationed up, right
Yeah.
in Northern California.
Yeah. Good drive.
Um, he calls the Santa Cruz police to confess his crimes, and at first they don't believe that Big Ed was a killer, right? Because they all know him
They're
already.
buddies, yeah.
He's friends with a lot of them. But during the interrogations, he leads them to the evidence and that he was in fact the co-ed killer. At this time, ironically, there's like two other. There's like the co-ed butcher, and
Hmm.
then one other one I can't think of right now. There's like three serial killers in this
Like
area going
active right
off.
now. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and I
crazy.
I think at one point in time, Ed and the co-ed butcher are actually like in the same place, which is like this remarkable event that happens.
It's like a
Um,
movie moment too, where they like cross paths. They probably
yeah.
like like notice something about each other.
Hey,
Ugh.
hey.
Hunters,
Yeah, yeah.
hunters. You
It's
know?
crazy. This whole confession though, it totally reminds me of the scene in American Psycho where Patrick in the movie of American Psycho where Patrick Bateman like calls his lawyer and he just rambles on all the murders he's done and his lawyer the next day calls and goes, "Oh my god, that was hilarious." Like he
Yeah.
doesn't believe it because it's just not the person he knows. Um so yeah, Ed was it was he had to convince people that he was the killer. That's how much people were blinded to this man, which is bonkers considering the level of depravity that he commits. You would think that this would be seen. Like that's
Well, no,
how
you only would think that because like you as human beings, we would love to believe that if someone is that heinous, they would wear it on them somehow. Like you could not be that dark and not kind of like show it in some way. That's what's scary about this whole thing is that you could spend the night with this guy having beers and talking and never know that he had just killed someone earlier that day,
yeah.
his mother, and
The
made
only
her
way
be.
you would know is when you go to his house to watch Saturday
Yeah,
Night Fever on
Star Wars.
VHS, Star Wars, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, that horrible. All right. So trial, imprisonment, so, due to the explicit and detailed confession, his counsel's only option was to plead not guilty by reason of insanity, of course. Um, Also, he attempts suicide twice while in custody, which I think is rather interesting,
I do too.
considering like how much he seems to thrive while he's imprisoned from all the interviews and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like maybe
But
that
he
was
was
something
never
he
going to be
just
able to like seek pleasure again.
sure, yeah. They even had three court-appointed psychiatrists that found him to be legally sane.
Mhm.
One of the psychiatrists was Dr. Joel Fort, who investigated his juvenile records and the diagnosis that he was once psychotic. Fort interviewed Kemper, including under truth serum. I
Cool.
didn't know that was a real
Yeah.
thing, to be honest
Cool.
with you.
Yeah.
And relayed to the court that Kemper had engaged in cannibalism, alleging that he sliced flesh from the legs of his victims, then cooked and consumed these strips of flesh in a casserole.
Hmm.
Um, but even with all this, court determined that Kemper was fully cognizant in each case and stated that Kemper enjoyed the prospect of the infamy associated with being labeled a murderer. And Kemper later recanted the confession of cannibalism. Can you do that, dude? You were on truth serum. You can't just like get
I
off
know.
truth serum and then
Like,
say, "Hey, I was just
no.
kidding." That's crazy. I would never do that.
So wow, so add one more layer to once you if you think necrophilia is bad, add
Cannibalism. That's what
cannibalism.
I'm saying. That's why I'm like, he literally did all of it.
All of it.
Everything that we know of all the serial killers, he was doing.
He's an
Well,
archetype, right? So it's a good call. Like I
yeah.
think he really is. Like he is what you the monster that keeps
I
people
guess
awake.
Gacy was doing a little bit different than him. Like Gacy was doing some sodomy type stuff, and Kemper doesn't. Kemper's more like strictly female rage.
Yeah.
Gacy was obviously more man on man. But yeah, no, he's definitely an archetype right here for most of the stuff that we know. Um, on November 1st, he takes a stand. He testified that he killed the victims because he wanted them for himself like possessions. And he continues to try to convince the jury that he's insane. And he makes a statement that two beings inhabited his body, and that when the
Mhm.
killer personality took over, it was kind of like blacking out. So, regardless of all this, the jury ends up finding him guilty in early November. The judge asks what he thinks his punishment should be, and Kemper says that he should be tortured to death. So instead, he receives 8 concurrent life sentences. And at present, he is serving time at California Medical Facility in Vacala, which I don't actually know if that's still the case. That was the last I heard, but
Yeah, so
I will
he
find that out and write him a letter.
dude, you
He's
should.
going to be our next guest.
You, yeah, right. So, do you imagine? I don't even, yeah, we would have to. He wouldn't make a very well, I don't know. That's a complicated one, you know? So, this, like, kind of like blacking out. What do you think about that? It's almost like a dissociative identity
Yeah,
disorder
but I
kind of,
think it's I think I do think he bullshits.
because he knows the diagnosis. He knows, like, how these things
He is
present. Yeah.
so intelligent. He knows what to like what angle he's because he's going for insanity. He
Yeah.
knows that that's the angle we're supposed to be playing. I feel like he comes up with this. I mean, the other part of that is like, yeah, maybe what you're saying with dissociation, maybe it's rage. Maybe he dissociates when he's full of rage. Hell, I
Well,
work with kids that do that, really.
yeah.
Um, it's not a crazy thing to think of. I don't know that it excuses it.
No, God, of course not. And like, are you really fully dissociated when you're raging? When you're a kid, you lack the insight, but he certainly does not lack the insight. So,
And
I
if you've rage killed once, okay.
yeah. Should
You
serve your time. You know what I mean? You should be in prison and
yeah,
probably for life.
you
But
rage killed 8 times?
yeah, I don't think
Like,
so.
come on,
You're
guy.
you're getting something out of it.
Yeah.
It's more of like a,
And that's not even a good argument because you should have gained some self-awareness and worked on that by
is
the
he angry that he's attracted to his mom? Like he can't really, like he can't have this ultimate, he can't, I don't know, fornicate with his mom. So he has, like, that's why he's so angry, and once he finally does, it's like he loses his desire. I don't know, it's like a weird, there is a weird sexual connect with that makes him angry, that it's not like socially acceptable, and that's the antisocial piece. One of the antisocial pieces, it's just he, you could talk about this guy's, you know, I don't know, disposition or conceptualization of him for hours, because it's got everything. It's so strange. It's nature versus nurture. It's I don't know. There biological elements there? Yeah, there's wildly, like a perfect storm, I guess you could
yeah.
say.
I think there's abandonment issues. I think there's trauma like significant trauma he's experienced. I think that there's neglect, obviously, another trauma, but still like just to kind of highlight it. Um
He happens to have that disconnect in his prefrontal area where he's not
yeah.
feeling the emotion, he's not feeling the remorse. He happens to be 6'9", 300 pounds.
All right, here's the other part. The way that you've described his affect, and this is, I'm not saying that this is something that is
I
common
know,
in
I know you're
people.
gonna say. We always go here.
He sounds like he's on the autism spectrum as well. And I only point that out because of like
It's an emotion thing there. Lack of it,
it
lack of
there's a
remorse.
yeah, there's a lot of times there can be that lack of like not every single case. I don't want people to think that I'm
No, of course not.
overgeneralizing, but there can be a difficulty with empathy.
There also can be like this fixation on a certain thing and not be able to get off of it, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so you take those characteristics, you mix them with PTSD, you mix them with abuse, neglect, abandonment. So we
Mhm.
talked about maybe reactive attachment or some borderline fear of abandonment. And
Maybe
then
some
you all
fetal alcohol.
maybe some fetal alcohol. And we also have like he was diagnosed as with narcissism, schizotypal
a-
personality
Yep.
disorder. There's like
Antisocial personality disorder.
antisocial personality disorder. I mean, it's a perfect storm for a really horrendous person.
Yeah. And let's not, like, I know I said it, but like let's not forget he's basically a fucking giant, which does matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That does matter. I mean, in the right family, this could have been a completely different scenario. Even
for
like
sure.
there's so, like when I say perfect storm, it's like maybe if dad was like, "Oh, Ed, yeah, like you know what, you're here with us, bud, we got you." But things could have been completely different.
Welcome to the new fam, Ed.
Yeah, welcome to the new fam. We love you. Imagine that. Like we love you. With that might have, I don't know, right? So
Yeah.
I tell my kids I love them, especially if you know what I mean, for sure. People need to hear that.
Yeah. Oh, kids need
It's
to
nice
hear
to hear.
that
Can
for
you
sure.
imagine? Like, dude, when, like, honestly, so I've been in a relationship, it's sad, like, whatever. I'm just, like, when's the last time someone, like, kind of grab you and was like, you know what? I love you. Dude, that feels good, I bet.
Yeah.
I'm saying it because
Wow.
I don't remember.
It's
You,
that's sounds really nice actually.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean? It
Yeah.
does. It does. Like I love you.
It's raining
Yeah.
and like I'm in a
Now you're
white
crying and
t-shirt.
raining inside too.
I'm in a white t-shirt and we're like
Yeah. And your abs are poking out.
I can totally imagine this scenario. It sounds
Oh
amazing.
man. Yeah, it does.
And
It does.
suddenly I
That,
don't want to rage kill anymore, you know?
oh yeah. Yeah. That
Wow.
just melted away. It melted,
Woo.
washed away with the rain. So, yeah. Tell your loved ones you love them,
Yeah.
especially if you're seeing some stuff.
And if, especially if they're 6'9", 300 pounds
Yeah, always tell them
and
you
everyone
love them.
thinks they're weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so back to this idea. Why is he not more popular as a serial killer in an era where serial killers have been glorified and popularized? And I'm not saying that's right. I'm not
Mhm.
saying that they should be glorified. I don't think they should be glorified. I think they become big focal points in society because they're so fascinating for all the wrong reasons, but they are these little dark sublets of society that like it's hard to ignore, right? And it makes us
Oh,
fascinated. Like,
yeah.
how does someone do these things?
Maybe
But
part
like,
of it's because like he is the archetype and it is so sort of cut and dry with him. It just makes sense. There's no like you look at like all the things that he is and you're like, yeah, all right, I can totally see that. Also, he doesn't have the charisma
yes,
of a
yeah,
Bundy or a fucking you know what I
yeah.
mean? It's like
So he's missing charisma, he's missing looks,
and he certainly is.
and he's missing anything like
Well, he does have a mustache.
so like, everyone would talk about how good looking Bundy is, right? Or and how charming he was. I even heard people say Dahmer is
No,
at some
look, people
points
no
was a
people
was a
pe-
handsome guy, you
people
know?
say that. Like it was a different time. The glasses were throwing people off, but
Yep.
like he was a
Richard
good looking
Ramirez had that dark edge to him that people
actor.
thought was cool. Ed Kemper does not have looks. He doesn't have charm or charisma.
No.
And he doesn't have clown makeup on the weekends like Gacy, which I think is why people are
Dude,
fascinated by
honestly,
Gacy.
that's a great point. There's no like
There's nothing special or
there's no
or out
mask.
there.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no mask. The mask is the blank mask, and I think that's why like he is sort of the Michael Myers figure, you know?
Yeah. You know, I always found BTK to be a fascinating person because of the family guys. And that's like,
Yes,
I think the
that's
thing that makes
it.
him fascinating. Cause like, if you took that away, he's not interesting at all either.
No. No, like
Right.
he's like Kemper's not juggling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
There's
he's not
nothing, there's no dynamic to his story.
it feels like when you watch a video of Kemper and you sit across from him and he's like talks in a monotone voice and flat and everything like that, you're like, even if you're talking about nothing, you're like, this dude could totally be a serial killer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you would think that. But with a Bundy or with even a Gacy who's like a politician, right? Doesn't he
You
like
hear how like they tricked everyone, how they were
yes,
like playing all.
yes. Yes.
And the other thing is Kemper also comes off as a little bit of like a pick me. Like
Yeah.
I want to talk to you. I want to tell you all about all this. I want to teach
Yes.
you everything. There's
A little
no
too
like,
eager.
yeah, there's no coyness. There's no like, I'll tell you a little bit, but you're going to keep wanting more from me. It's like, no, I'm just going to tell you this super long story and it's going
Yeah.
to keep going. And I'll
We
just
don't
tell
have
it
to
to
dig
you all.
for it. We don't have to like there's no journey to uncover.
Yeah.
It's just here it is. Big Ed is a fucking weirdo. All right.
So we just figured that out. I think
Probably.
and all of that just came to us as this episode ended, which I think is awesome and fascinating as well. We were able to put that together. So
Hey, look, sometimes
we just
we are able to do things like
conceptualized.
this, you know? Um, you know, oh, another thing about the mom that we failed to mention is like he used her face as a dartboard for a while before he,
Really?
yes, that's kind of classic.
Well, not too long, right? Because I mean,
Not too
he
long,
like the
no,
night
but
of.
like, yeah, the night of. He had a good
Wow,
old night.
though.
He had a weird
Wow, he
evening.
was horrible.
Dave, this always makes me like think of that one question, and I don't think we certainly can't answer that question tonight. And maybe we've probably posed it before. Like, can you be born evil? You know?
I
Or are we blank
think
slates essentially?
I do think with him, there's a large case to be made that this could be created. that this was created to some extent.
Yeah.
I don't, the
Just
thing with the
the conditions
sisters,
have to be there though, right? The
yeah,
conditions have to be
the
there.
conditions have to be there. The things with the sister is very telling, though.
It really is.
They
That's what makes
they
me wonder, you know?
they push him on a train track. They push him into a pool to the point where he almost dies. Like there
He
might be
knew
some family
something.
genetics here
Oh, okay. So
that are
do you
that
think that
are
the sisters are just like it's almost like runs in the family? Or
I,
do
the
you think that
more I'm
the sisters
thinking
see?
about it, I don't think it's like they were saving anyone or they saw.
Oh, wow.
Not
Okay.
the more I think about it, like that would be a really interesting way to look at it. But
Yeah.
like the more I think about it, I'm like, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And then all the like the mom had her set of issues, and she's torturing their kid. That's
So
that's
what you're saying
torture.
makes sense then, because it's like, okay, so if this thing's environmental, then why would it pass over the sisters? It wouldn't,
Right. And
you
they
know?
seem to be pretty dark from that telling. And like
Yeah,
I
well,
don't
I
know
mean,
what they grew
instead of telling
into,
on their
but
brother, they're like, well, let's just kill them.
yeah.
Our little brother.
And you're basically teaching them that like it's okay to try to kill someone.
Yeah. Like if someone's in your way,
Kill them.
kill them. Yeah.
You want to have sex with your mom? Kill him.
And kill her. And then go
And then
ahead.
kill her. Jesus. Whew.
I know that makes me feel weird.
Wild
Oh,
one.
and by the way, speaking of moms,
Shout out to our moms.
so my mom came over for dinner today and she said so many nice things about the podcast, and it was pretty pathetic. I'm talking about my mom like it, but she has been a fan forever, and she always comes over and she's like, "You guys say to leave a message or to do this or to do that. And I never understand how. So like, I'll just come over and tell you, and make sure you tell Dave." And thanks, Linda. I would never call you Linda to your face because I love you. But thanks, Mom. We appreciate you. We
Yes,
appreciate you.
absolutely. Thank you for that. She did share with you that she really liked our last two episodes,
Loves
which,
the porn addiction for whatever reason.
but when you told me that, I was like, that's kind of crazy because I really liked that
Me too.
episode. And it was one that was like, I don't know. I just felt like we were having a conversation about something that really needs to be a conversation more often.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I just felt like we were my intention and hope for that episode. I think when we were having the conversation, I was like, I feel like we're getting it across. And it was like, this is a really uncomfortable topic. And it's for the people who are experiencing it, probably would really appreciate hearing someone advocate and also validate how they are experiencing it. So like that felt good to be able to do that. I'm
It
hoping
did.
someone who actually like has a like some kind of connection to
I
porn
know.
addiction
I was surprised. Like
will.
I want someone to reach out about it too.
Yeah, I would love to hear some feedback if anybody does or like has some connection, whether it's them or self or somebody else, and like how they respond to it. Because
Or even if
I,
you were like, "What the hell is this?" You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like if you had that too,
something.
like give us because I want to know how people felt about that one too. That one was I for whatever reason that one's important to me. It felt good.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
then
we
she liked the episode that I probably thought was my least favorite of the
yeah
year.
yeah what the modest proposal?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know, I know.
It was an
Swing and a
interesting
miss. I
idea,
thought
but then like while we were doing it, I'm like, ugh, I'm not participating in this conversation the way I wish I could.
I know. You know what? That one was. Hey, look, we've done. Getting close to two. We're not like super close, but we're getting close to 200, and that's a lot of topics, dude.
We still
You
got a
know,
lot of topics to
and we
go.
still got a lot of topics. So there's just some of them are we'll try our
Yeah.
best. Like,
So, for people who are interested in knowing this, we have a Patreon and we have an Apple subscribe. And if you jump on those, not only do you get our almost 200 episode catalog, but now you're getting bonus episodes. And we have two bonus episodes.
bonus, yes.
So we had one that we did for Valentine's Day, and we have one that we did for St. Patrick's Day on Banshees, which I thought that was fun. It
Great
was a
one.
very short episode, but I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
We dug into some Irish folklore and kind of like talked about why, if I mean Banshees, if you don't know what they are, listen to the episode. But we talked about why they might exist
Yeah.
and a
Good
lot
episode.
of fun stuff. And we're gonna do more of those, and I'm looking forward to it. So check out Patreon for for our unconventional therapists, and all, or check out Apple Subscribe and you get access to both of those episodes. If you go on Patreon, though, we're releasing the videos to everything. It's not just the audio content. So you'll have the video version of the bonus episodes, not just the audio of
Or I
them.
guess we could say this too. If we've been with you for a while and we're not going anywhere and we're always gonna, put the effort in every week and you just feel like throwing in on it, I mean, you can do that too on Patreon too, right? Like a donation kind of
There's
thing.
a thing you should probably look at our Patreon before you talk, but
Yes.
there's a tier for people to I
Yeah, I
think
mean that would
that's
be great. Like that's we're never gonna stop, but like, it's there's a lot of effort involved. And
some
if
of
you
us more
appreciate
than others, but yeah, there's a lot
Yeah, some of
going
us
on
more
here.
than others. Absolutely. I won't be the first to admit that, but I will always be
There's
reading and digging in.
a
And
lot of extra stuff beyond that, but yep,
yeah,
a
I
lot
know
of
Dave,
stuff going
without
on here.
Dave, we
Doesn't
would be
matter. Doesn't
toilet.
matter. But yeah. So I think that if people check those out, I think they'll be pleasantly surprised because I think what we have coming up for future bonus episodes and is really gonna like interest people because our ideas for those is to do something kind of different than what our typical episodes would be. Like I don't want to just take a topic like what we do and like dissect it. I want to like explore more theoretical or concept ideas at times and things like that. So I think people will be pleasantly surprised. It's
Yeah.
going to take time because, obviously it takes time to get these things out. So, yes, check those out. Also, as we mentioned, ratings and review. If you don't know how to do it, you can always go to Greg's house and tell him in person, as his mom
We
did. And
yes,
that's
we would
totally
love
fine
that.
too. We'll love
Yeah,
that.
even better.
Um, and yeah, that's pretty much it, right?
I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, everyone, thank you for this listening to this dark episode on Ed Kemper. I actually really enjoyed it.
True crime.
I hope we didn't laugh too much because, I mean, that always is a weird combination when you're talking about murder. You don't think about, well, I mean, a lot of comedians are doing like true
Yeah,
crime
levity.
things, but at the same time, yeah, you gotta, yeah, the murder isn't funny, but like Ed
No,
Kemper is
I know
kind
you
of
honestly, you know what? I know exactly what you mean. Like there's reverence for
yeah,
victims. And then there's levity so that we don't all end up in the toilet after listening to the episode. You know what I mean?
yes, yeah. So
So
I
it's like a
hope that
balance.
comes across and not
Yeah.
so much just thinking we think this is a joke because it's definitely not.
No.
But he's a scary dude. So if to talk about that for an hour straight is kind of just heavy, and I don't know that anyone wants to just listen to that. And if you
Right.
do, then you probably want to go listen to like Crime Junkies or something like that.
Yeah.
But
You'll like
anyways, you like that. Was that what you did you browse that a little bit? There was a few things on Ed. I'll be honest with you, I wasn't like super blown away about a lot of the content I found about him either.
No, I mean, and it's kind of like you had to piecemeal it for
Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
to kind of like put it all together. Yeah, I know you're right. There's not a ton, and there's no movie. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's actually, to be honest with you, I put that on our list for this week because I got inspired when I saw there is like an indie horror film coming out on Ed Kemper. So I reached out to them and I was like, hey, I'd love to do some coverage on this film. Let me know if I can get a screener or whatever. I didn't get a response yet, but I'll keep working on that. But I was like, hey, we should just do Ed Kemper because that's like kind of also a good topic. They did do like a 2008 direct to video horror film on Ed Kemper back when they did like all the individual serial killers. They had like a Gain, they had BTK, they had a Dahmer one. Those are kind of like B movie.
Yeah,
Actually, Jeremy Renner, you know who that is
yeah.
from the Marvel movies and all that
Nighthawk or
stuff.
something like that.
He played did he play Dahmer in one of them? Yeah, he did. I'm pretty sure he was Dahmer in one of them.
Huh.
So yeah, interesting. But side
All
note.
right.
All right, everybody, that's probably enough here. So we will see you next week. Have a great night. Peace out.
Sorry.
Wow, that was horrible.
Dude, I try to hold it.
That was
It
the
just hit me.
worst. Yeah, we just watched Greg yawn. All right, everyone, see you later. Bye.
Oh man.